Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 81 for February 2nd, 2018. Hey everybody, Dan Rubino joined again by Zach Bowden for our first Windows Central Podcast for February. This week we'll be talking about, well, we mentioned quickly, the Bug Bash coming up. If you're one of those people that likes to complain about Windows, here is your chance to actually contribute to the world and help with Bug Bash. So we'll talk about that briefly. What about Q2 earnings? Well, I think I might let Zach talk about Q2 earnings. I did not really pay attention to these, but we're not going to go too much depth. We're just going to talk about a little bit about the Surface stuff. We'll talk about Cortana again. It is now available in the Microsoft Launcher, at least in the beta version, at least in a few countries where Cortana is. So there's like 3 of you, including me. That's all that matters. We'll also talk about the best Android phones, which I did a video this week. A lot of people asked me, hey, I'm a Windows Phone user looking to maybe switch to Android because Microsoft hates us. What phone should I get? So I did a thing in that. And then we'll wrap it up with Zach talking about Xbox Joule. This was also known as the Xbox Fitness Watch, which eventually morphed into Microsoft Band, which eventually morphed into Band 2, which morphed into Band 3, which morphed into product cancellation. That'll be a fun conversation as always. Zach, how are you on this fine Friday?
I'm not too bad. I've been playing around with my brand new iPhone X. I'm a traitor, I know, but
Dude, you're almost as bad as me with phones, except I don't necessarily always buy my own phones. But
hey, I don't always buy my own phones either. This one I did.
I can't believe you bought an iPhone X. Why?
I don't know, but I like it.
You're literally, but you. Like, this is why I don't trust some of your reviews on phones. You just get bored.
No, it's true. It's good. But I review a phone as it is currently. If I'm enjoying a phone, I'm enjoying the phone. But it doesn't mean that phone's still not good regardless, right? It's still a good. The OnePlus 5T is still an amazing phone. I still have it. I still use it. See it.
See, like, we'll get into the segment on best Androids eventually. But, like, the OnePlus 3T was such a good phone that, like, the only reason I went to the 5 was because eventually they offered it in white again, and I was just like, well, it's basically the same thing, just slightly newer. So, but I don't know, I get pretty comfortable with these phones. I don't really feel like a huge difference between them, and I just think it's funny what the iPhone 10 is super nice hardware, but did you put a giant case on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, Mark Grimm has this phone, and so I pick it up every once in a while, and it literally just looks like an iPhone with this giant leather case on it. I'm like, why? What was the point of this?
You're not wrong. Admittedly, one of the reasons I did get it was, for one, I just wanted the Face ID on it's pretty cool. It's a lot. What people say is magical. It does work pretty much most of the time. And the second thing on the gestures, I was interested to see how the gestures work, and they are very intuitive and natural. And it's funny because, like, literally the day I picked this up, OnePlus added gestures to the 5T. I was like, damn it.
Oh, yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah, the gestures were weird. I don't know. You got used to them? You like them?
Yeah, I do like them. Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, I find it kind of... Mark had to, like, explain it to me. I'm like, this... Okay. I don't know. It was just one of those things... Well, we should probably get back to the regular part of the podcast. But I just thought it was one of those things where, like... I don't know. I felt like it was a change for something that really wasn't broke. But, you know, whatever. Let's talk about the PSA Bug Bash. So tell us what the Bug Bash is, why people should care, and when the dates are for that.
So the Bug Bash is something Microsoft does every now and then. It's essentially a phase of time during a Windows development cycle where Microsoft focuses on fixing bugs. That's why they call it the Bug Bash. They're bashing all these bugs out and fixing them. Because we are now at the tail end of Redstone 4 development, which means we are almost done. We are about a month out, maybe, a little bit more, before Microsoft should be, compiling RTM candidates and then releasing a build out in April or May. So so the Bug Bash starts today, I think. I don't know how long it goes on for. I didn't really look into it. But if you're running an insider build on the fast or slow rings, Microsoft is looking at you guys and hoping that you will be submitting lots of different things in the in the feedback hub. There will be lots of different quests and stuff. And you can just do that. That's pretty much the quick PSA. You can start doing that now in the feedback hub. There should be a few quests already, maybe. If not, that some I think will pop up every now and then, and it will work just like that.
Very cool. Yeah, I don't do the Bug Bash as much as I should, but I think it's very good for people, obviously, to hop in there and get that help contribute to everything. But overall, good stuff. Make sure you do that. The Insider team is counting on you folks to help them out and solve these problems so we can all benefit from a good, what we are still calling Redstone 4 release, which is pretty funny that we still don't have a name for that. But two things I want to announce, too, before we go any further. One, next week won't be here. I'll be on vacation. So, well, but don't worry, the podcast goes on without me. And so help me God if I hear people telling me not to come back to my own show. But same time next week, I just won't be here. And when I do come back, I'll be darker. So that's all I can say. And I just also want to say, I mentioned this week about the, we did an article, the Razer Siren Elite from Razer. It's their new microphone. I'm using it here. And you can kind of see it in the video if you're watching it. The only reason I'm mentioning it is because I'm actually interested in feedback here. If you guys like the audio, if it sounds significantly better, let me know.
Do you have what's it called? A gain switcher on it?
Yes.
Try turning it down slightly. Because you do sound slightly overblown.
Okay, how about now?
That sounds a lot better. There you go. Perfect. I recommend it.
Good to know. Yeah, there are lots of, well, not actually lots. There's 2 dials and then a high-pass filter, which is kind of cool, which will filter out, apparently, background noise like air conditioners and fans. But yeah, good microphone, $200, not cheap. This is their pro, their elite version. There's also the Siren X, which is a $100 version, which is more for casual gamers and stuff. But this is for kind of like pro level. It's a really nice microphone, actually. I replaced the Rode Podcaster, which is what I was using before, and it was getting a little long in the tooth with this one. I still got to get the bouncy thing for it. But if you guys like it, let me know. It's available now from Razer. You can go get it. I'll see about reviewing it. I don't know. I'm not really good at reviewing microphones, I guess, but I don't know. We'll see. All right, let's get to the rest of the stuff. Let's talk about, Q2 earnings. This is not my bag.
It's not mine either. I look at the big number, which is usually the most important one. Microsoft did pretty well. Their revenue for the quarter was $28.9 billion, which increased 12%. Operating income was $8.7 billion and increased 10%. And that's pretty much all that's interesting. The thing that got most people talking was the Surface numbers. And the Surface didn't do badly, but it didn't do well either. It's pretty much flatlined. It increased 1%, which 1% obviously isn't too much. And that's got a few people talking and some people worried. I mean, I don't really see much of an issue with this. I remember Surface is supposed to sort of encourage other OEMs to build better hardware. I don't think Microsoft ever intended the Surface line to be a sort of cash cow. Yeah. Although it's nice if it does become a cash cow. And in some quarters, it has been a cash cow.
Well, it's a double-edged sword, right? If they started right now, I think Surfaces account for something like 5% of all PCs or something like that. It's a pretty small number, maybe even 2%. And it's one of those things, if that became 20%, and people stopped buying HPs and XPSs and all that, that'd be a problem. It would be if you think Surfaces are kind of hard to find right now in countries and widespread availability and all that kind of stuff, I think if they actually were very successful, it would be one of two things. One, the product is just really good, but then also HP and Dell and Lenovo, all of them are not creating things that are compelling enough or a lower price point, and that's a problem. So, I mean, I don't know. See, these numbers, it's hard to interpret, right? 1% improvement when they've had almost 3 new major devices launch. Yeah, is not really good. At the same time, like you said, this was not meant to be a huge... For me, if it lost money, it would be bad, right? If they saw a 10% drop and it fell... But if we saw that, then I'd be like, ooh. Because then you start getting into the oh God, they're not making money with this. And that's when things start to get rough. But I don't know. I think this was actually kind of... I don't know. I'd love to be what are your expectations, Microsoft, for Surface? Because we don't know.
Yeah, and funnily enough, today Microsoft released 2 new sort of models of both the Surface Laptop and Surface Book 2. The Surface Laptop received a cheaper model, which costs $800 and has an Intel Core M3 with 4 gigabytes of RAM and 128 gigabytes of storage, which puts it in line with the lowest end Surface Pro, which is also $800 and it has the same Intel Core M3, 4 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage. The only difference is on the laptop you get a keyboard and trackpad in the box, and on the Surface Pro you don't. So if you're buying the Surface Pro, you likely want the keyboard with it, which is an extra $129, maybe $150, which is then $850, almost $900. So, you know, the Surface laptop has suddenly become a very viable option for a lot of people interested in Surface, especially college students and stuff. Because the Intel Core M3 chips, they're capable. I'd say they're capable chips. They're not powerhouses by any means.
Oh, I think they're fine. And again, it's expectations.
Right.
It depends what you're trying to do with it. If you want a game on there, it's going to be rough.
A Surface laptop for $800 is not... It's not bad, really. It really isn't bad. And then the Surface Book 2 got a new low-end SKU, which costs, I want to say $1,200, and that has an Intel Core i5 with 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage, which is what the original Surface Book launched with. If you remember back in 2015, the Surface Book launched with a SKU just like that, and that's the one actually I own, which was fine.
Well, people start getting like debatable is like, oh, it only has 4 gigs of RAM. Like, I'm actually generally kind of okay with 4 gigs of RAM. I'm not as like partisan about it as some other people are, but 8 gigs is totally fine. 120 gigs of storage, but you can still use micro SD expansion or SD expansion, I should say, with it. So
right, so
yeah, the Surface laptop for that price. See, the thing about Surface laptop, the specs aren't like obviously the processor, Core M3, blah blah blah, but you're going to get solid battery life. It'll last you all day in school or something like that. You're getting a really good display, both in terms of resolution, color accuracy, and just the way it looks with thin bezels. You're getting awesome keyboard, super important on a computer, and you're getting a really good trackpad, also super important, and you're getting good audio, because I love the Surface laptop speakers, really impressive stuff. So like, for me, though, that's how I review laptops. It's like, you know, does it get the fundamentals right? Like, by the way, later today, I'll be re-reviewing the Razer Blade Stealth. They have the 8th generation Intel Core out there that came out. Now, that's a good example of it's very similar to Surface. It's expensive. People would be like, oh, there's cheaper options out there with better performance. And 100% right, you know, but at the same time, it's like, did it get the fundamentals right? Do I like typing on it? Do I like the display? Do I like using it? And that's important for these things. So $799, man, I don't know. That's kind of a cool thing.
I'd almost say that's competitive pricing, which is
surprising that's right
for Microsoft, considering they don't really want to anger their partners too much.
But HP and Dell still have this like, we're everywhere in the world. Like HP is like in 53 markets. Like they launched their PCs like that, you know. And that's one reason why I think Microsoft is just like strategic about which markets they put their Surface in, which I know is bad for our audience, but that's, I think, part of it.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't see this as bad news yet. If we start getting into like a few quarters where it's losing money for Microsoft, then that's when it becomes a problem. But if we're keeping our heads above the water and they're, even earning more than they're putting into it, then that's I think that's fine. That's what Surface is there for. It's just to make their partners realize that what Microsoft wants is good hardware out of them. So yeah, I'm not too worried about the Surface stuff. Going back to the numbers quick. Cloud and all, enterprisey stuff is pretty much what's raking all the money for Microsoft, and it has been for a while. This is why Microsoft is less focused on consumer stuff these days. And overall, it was an okay quarter. I think But the
Windows licensing was also up too, right?
Windows OEM revenue increased 4%, driven by OEM Pro revenue growth by 11%. So
I mean, see, that's super important. And now those aren't like hugely impressive numbers. No. But compared to where we were, you go back to 2012. I go find tech blogs and major media sites going, is the PC era over? And it was all about iPads and like this new, remember it was like the post-PC world. And it was this idea that like, oh, we're done with PCs and like that market's done and Microsoft's screwed and all this kind of stuff. The fact that we're seeing growth in PCs again, even if it's modest, is a huge turnaround in that market from where it was negative. And we had like, I think it was like 10 quarters of like negative growth or something like that. So I'm excited about that. And it goes to show you that what I think Microsoft is doing, which is repositioning and reinventing what the PC is. And we're going to continue to see this in 2018 and 2019. We've obviously talked a lot about this with Polaris and Andromeda. You're going to see this, and of course, Windows 10 on ARM. You're going to see this reinvention of what a PC is from Microsoft. And I think it's actually starting to resonate, which is nice, you know?
I think the PC market in regards to growth is an interesting one, because it's not like the phone market where a new phone comes out every year. I mean, a new laptop does come out every year, right? But the last time a version of Windows upped requirements in regards to technical specifications was Windows Vista.
Sure.
And that was 10, 12 years ago. And that was probably when a lot of people started buying new laptops because their old ones couldn't run the latest version of Windows anymore. But since then, technical specs have sort of flatlined. Windows 10 doesn't require much more than Windows Vista did. So a lot of people who bought those new laptops back 10 years ago, they probably haven't needed to upgrade for quite a while. So now we're getting that influx of people who upgraded when Windows 7 came out, upgrading again because it's been long enough and their laptops are now falling apart. Perhaps that's why we're starting to see an increase again. Because it's like buying a TV. A lot of people buy a computer or a laptop or whatever, like a TV. You don't buy a TV every year. You buy that TV and you expect to use it for at least 8 years, right? You don't want to buy a new TV every 2 years.
Although, you don't want to, but it's amazing how the TV market has changed. Is similar to the smartphone market now. Like, there are, like, every year at CES, it's like I see the new TVs. I'm like that meme walking with the girlfriend and looking at the, it's like, I got an LG OLED. Oh, what's that? An AK OLED, So, but this gets us to the whole thing about just technology in general is becoming pervasive. There's just much more money involved with it. I mean, I still laugh. I've been doing this for so long, going back to 2007, 2006 with smartphones. Back then, the smartphone cycle was 2 years. And I don't mean like that's when you bought one. I mean, like, it took 2 years between one model. You'd get a Trio 650, and then it was 2 years later, be like a Trio 700. And there was nothing else in between that. And now we get, every 8 months, right? And there's like way more manufacturers. So I think it's exciting times. And stuff with the PC stuff, though. Also, I'd also mention education, I think, is probably playing a role in this. We saw Microsoft actually get significant gains in the U.S. segment of the education market. They're still doing dominant in Europe at 60%, but they're worried obviously with Chromebooks. But their strategy, which is partly PC, hardware, low-cost manufacturing, but also the Intune and the management stuff and Windows 10s and everything seems to be also helping push all that up as well. So I like those numbers. I think they're pretty good.
One more stat worth noting is gaming revenue was increased by 8% thanks to the Xbox One X launch, which is always nice to hear. So gaming's doing pretty well. I think there's like 59 million Xbox Live users now or something.
Yeah, and that's the important number, right?
So, Xbox is doing pretty well. There doesn't seem to be any sign of problems in that area. Overall,
we should definitely, we're going to bring Jez on sometime for a gaming talk about strategy there from Microsoft, because we don't talk about it enough, but like Microsoft's Xbox strategy is super interesting. Like the console sales, okay, they're doing well. They're holding strong. One X seems to be doing well. But it's those Xbox Live Gold numbers that are super important because it's the recurring subscription stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think we're going to see a lot more of this. Console market is important. The larger PC market is probably
the ecosystem's bigger.
Yeah, and this idea of like what you're seeing with Microsoft when it comes to its software and services living on Android and iOS, I think is going to start to happen for gaming too. And that's going to drive our core audience nuts. I'm going to love it because the people who want like exclusive everything on Xbox, I feel like the days of exclusive console titles being the driving factor in this business is coming to an end very quickly.
In theory, it already has, because any Xbox exclusive is already on Windows 10 by default now. So that's PC is already eating into the Xbox console market. But again, you need to forget about Xbox hardware sales, Xbox as a whole. It's the Xbox ecosystem, the Microsoft's gaming ecosystem that's important here. Xbox Live gamers, whether they're on PC or Xbox, they're still part of the same ecosystem. They're still putting money in, you're still getting achievements, you can still make friends and play with each other. That's what's important. It's not about how many people own an Xbox One console versus how many people own a PlayStation 4 console. If Microsoft can take over the gaming industry, which again is also a challenge in itself considering Steam's a thing, but if imagine in the future, gamers are using the Microsoft store to buy their games, that instantly,
that's gonna be so good.
that would take over PS4 losers, because the PC market is bigger than the PS4 market.
And let me also say this: last night, in a rare moment of Dan actually enjoying his computer and Windows 10 like a normal consumer that is sitting on my couch, just browsing the store. I don't get to use my stuff as much as you guys do, at least in terms of relaxation, unfortunately. But I was on my couch using Surface Book 2 15-inch, aka best laptop ever. Don't tell HP and Dell that, but and I went to the store and I was browsing through games, and I was also checking movies and TV. But under games, I was really excited to see, again, bigger PC titles that are coming that are available now in the Windows Store that I didn't see a year ago. These are sort of like your traditional PC games, whether they're real-time RPG type RPG games, strategy games, RTS. Just seeing a lot more of those. Now, I don't play a lot of those, but I know they're big in the gaming community, especially because people come back and play them over and over again. Versus 2 or 3 years ago, where it's like, we got Candy Crush and then the new Candy Crush. And basically what were Windows Phone games that could also play on PC, which was a cool thing. But, if you're a PC gamer, you're like, that's not exciting. But I saw some really cool games. Not only that, I saw quite a few Xbox One games that are also available as Play Anywhere titles, some bigger ones, or I should say like more independent, non-traditional games are doing that. I bought a bullet shooter last night. It actually comes out, I think, the 7th. I forgot the name of it now. Major Nelson was tweeting it out last night. I think it's like a special edition version. $7.99, and you buy it, and it plays on Xbox One and PC. I'm like, done, right? I love that concept so much, and I hope we see more of that kind of stuff.
I don't think it'll be long as well before Microsoft starts allowing Xbox games to run on PC just generally, because in theory they should be, maybe not the original Xbox One games, but a lot of the recent ones that come out, they are built with the SDK that technically can target PC as well, I believe. I might be wrong on that, but assuming I'm right, then Microsoft could one day just say, hey, these can play on PC now. Although I think there's licensing agreements and stuff that Microsoft has to
you know how you get around that, though? I mean, this is what I see as their future. And I mean, Phil Spencer's already acknowledged this. Basically, they're going to launch a game streaming service.
Right.
They have Azure. They already own the entire infrastructure to make this happen. What in Minecraft we know is basically being powered by all this stuff. Gears of War was also a good example of this. And so this question of like streaming to a PC now becomes way more possible, because if you have a good internet connection, and like we've already seen this with the Xbox app, right, can stream your Xbox One to any device basically. You bring game streaming into this, and then you bring in that licensing model that's similar to what music is. And we already saw this with the, as people pointing out, the Xbox Play like the Game Pass, Play Anywhere, and all that kind of stuff. You bring in this licensing model of like $10 a month, and you get a license to a library of games. Could you imagine just streaming that to any PC and just connecting up a controller? That is a pretty cool feature. Now, all of a sudden, the platform becomes less important. It's more about the content. And that's kind of what I think people are used to with music and movies. Why not games?
Microsoft is slowly moving to a cloud-based OS. I mean, we've said it before. Cloud is their future, and if they can get things moved over to it sooner rather than later, then they will. And gaming is definitely one of those areas where cloud benefits a lot of people, because then what happens is you don't really need a graphics card to play games. If that's being powered somewhere else, well, a server with GTX 1080s or whatever, or the Xbox One X's that you stream that from, then you can be running that on a HP Stream, or a Surface laptop with integrated graphics.
Or a foldable PC in your pocket.
Or a foldable PC, exactly. And it doesn't matter. The hardware is no longer a thing. You stream it. And
5G will play a big role in this too. And now something goes, but when Microsoft need to get permission to do this, yeah, of course. I mean, it's literally no different than a music artist saying, yes, Spotify, you can use my library, but I want to cut. What's the deal we're going to make? Netflix has to do that with movie studios and specific movie titles. So that model already exists. It's more about, can Microsoft guarantee these publishers financial incentive to go ahead and do this? And by the way, and how you do that, of course, is like right now you're making $20 million, but with our subscription model, we project you'll make $30 million, like that kind of thing. And if they see value in it, and they should, if it's done right, that's going to be the future for this stuff. And it'll be like Xbox Play Anywhere. Xbox Play Anywhere is opt-in for publishers. And so they have to go, all right, we're going to make our game, buy once and play it everywhere. But they have to see financial reason to do that. And we're seeing more titles. If you don't believe me, just go to the your Microsoft Store on your PC, go to the gaming section and look at like new PC games. And you'll see a lot of them will have the logo Play Anywhere. And you'll see there's a bunch of the new ones up there are doing this. So.
I think that option becomes viable for developers when it's a system where selecting an option means your game will be put into the hands of people who wouldn't necessarily be able to play that game.
Sure.
It's like phones or, low-end laptops and stuff. Because that's the whole market. It's, lots of people don't have PCs that can play games. Most people don't. The PC gaming is a small segment of the overall PC market. So if one day Microsoft has this cloud streaming service where all of a sudden all of these low-end PCs can play these games now, developers will be more obliged to press that button and allow their game to be Play Anywhere, because it means they're opening up their game to a whole nother market that previously couldn't play that game.
Yeah.
But we're not there yet, unfortunately.
No, but I think it's important to talk about this stuff. I think this is definitely where all this is heading for Microsoft, and why, we can focus on 1X sales, and like there's no worry there. They're doing fine, but for long term, I see Microsoft's strategy shifting towards this more open model of gaming. I mean, I don't know. How cool would it be to have the Nintendo Switch being able to stream Xbox Live games? Could you imagine that?
Oh man, that'd be pretty awesome.
You got pay Microsoft $10 a month on your Nintendo Switch, and you can play some of these old titles. That'd be sweet. Like, who wouldn't want that? And if you're a gamer, that you totally want that because you want the hardware, right? So I don't know. We'll come back to that. Maybe we'll have Jez on sometime, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. Let's talk about, speaking of Microsoft putting stuff on other stuff, let's talk about Cortana launching with Microsoft Launcher. So this isn't a surprise. We've actually known that Microsoft was going to put Cortana into the launcher at some point. We've talked about numerous times that Microsoft is going to put Cortana everywhere it can, basically. And we're finally starting to see that. Just this week, Cortana, Microsoft Launcher, Cortana is coming to To-Do, which is their Wunderlist kind of competitor.
Finally, I've been complaining about Microsoft's many to-do services for a long time. Just consolidate them into one. I don't see why there's 3 of them. I don't want to. That's a tough one to crack, but we just know that it's going to get Cortana is being worked on at this point. They also announced the Cortana Research Institute, I believe it's called, which is a deal made with Melbourne University, or University in Melbourne. I forgot the actual name of it. And it's to study AI and how people use it and how problems that it can be used to be solved. Again, I've said this before. What people call AI now in these voice assistants is really sophisticated voice recognition, which is nice, with some back-end triggers, which is kind of cool, but it's still not impressive. I am not one of those people who are like, I just told a speaker to play a song and it played it. Like, yeah, that's kind of cool, but that is not like super AI, right? That's not the thing where we want it to be able to predict stuff. That's what this stuff is. And so when people talk about Cortana being dead, it's kind of funny because there's just this week there were 3 announcements, and then we did a thing talking about actually Microsoft's going to put Cortana way deeper into the OS. So no, Cortana's not dead. Let's talk about Launcher, though. If you're in a beta program for Launcher, which on Android you could just go and sign up for it, and you'll get the new update. There's 2 integrations here, actually. There's one, and I'll do a video on this, actually, when I get back from vacation, showing how I Microsoft-ize my Android phone. You swipe the cards to the left, and you can put widgets there. It's a really nice system where you can put a widget there and configure the size. And they have one now for Cortana. And it's kind of a placeholder. It's more like, here's Cortana, here's some things you can say, and you can tap the microphone and launch. But it's more there, I think, just to get visible for people to see. There's also the search bar widget, which when you do Microsoft Launcher, it's there on your main start screen. And if you tap the microphone, this new UI pops up with Cortana. And I wrote an editorial today about this, criticizing how there's like 3 different UIs for Cortana on Android for some reason. Now this new one, though, looks really nice. I think it looks really, really cool. But then you just use Cortana and you can tell it to do things. I don't know. I like this idea of putting Cortana everywhere. The problem, of course, right now is you could have Cortana in Skype, Microsoft Launcher. You can have, of course, Bing Search.
what was the other one? Or you could just have Cortana, the app, right?
Yeah, I think...
And they don't talk to each other. They don't, it doesn't know it's all on the same device, which is annoying for notifications.
I think the goal for Microsoft here is, over time, they're just going to make the Prime Cortana experience the Microsoft launcher. So if you're using the launcher, you don't need to download the Cortana app. It's just all in the launcher. And the Cortana app would be there for those who don't want the launcher. Because I know lots of people who have some interesting opinions whether the Microsoft launcher is good or bad compared to things like Nova Launcher or Eevee Launcher. Because there are other Android launchers that are arguably better. Thanks for Cortana. That are arguably better in regards to other things, but the Microsoft launcher is more for Microsoft people, and that's not for everybody. So some people may want to use the Cortana app, and that will still be a separate thing.
I also want to point out, this is important. A lot of people are like, I don't get why I have Cortana in the launcher when you can just have the Cortana app and map it to your home button for a long press. And that sounds like a good point, except you can't remap buttons on all Android phones. I don't think Samsung allows it. I know pretty sure my LG doesn't allow me to do that, so I can't change the voice assistant.
You can remap the home button on every Android device because that's just an Android thing. But things like the Bixby button, I don't think you can.
I don't know, man. On my LG one, I try to... What it is when I go into the settings, because LG skins their own settings and has their own settings, like some things are hidden and aren't there. So if I type in like voice in LG... Nothing like it's like voice assist for the hearing impaired and all that kind of stuff. But there's no, I haven't been able to find where I switch from Google and pick Cortana, which I can do on my OnePlus, Razer, and Essential phone,
and
which
Samsung
is nice.
Can as well, which I can confirm. And Nokia, the Nokias can do it.
Okay, so but this is one way to get around that for some people at least, because then or if you really want to live in both worlds, you can still have your Google as your button, but still have Cortana as search. I don't know why you do that, but I think the important thing is to get options. But it works well. I really like Microsoft Launcher. It's a really nice piece of software, and I don't know. It's kind of cool to see them doing this stuff.
Yeah.
Of course, we should mention it's only available in a few countries. That is the bigger problem with Cortana. I would still love to get Microsoft to comment on that, about like why that is and what they plan on doing about it. I think they see, I know our audience is like, well, everybody's going to adopt this thing and they'll never switch to Cortana. And I don't know. I don't feel that strongly about this stuff yet. I get the argument, obviously, but I still feel like these is still pretty early days. I've had other people tell me, Cortana will never work because it has no mobile OS, which, again, I've done that video where I've said not having a phone is hurts their Cortana ambitions. But I mean, Amazon doesn't have a mobile OS. So,
right.
I mean, Alexa seems to be doing very well. So there are ways around this stuff.
I honestly think that they're going to reposition Cortana still as a virtual assistant, but as you mentioned, they are working on trying to sort of weave Cortana into the operating system, because right now, on every platform, really, the virtual assistant experience is sort of segregated. It's an area you go into to get things done. No operating system yet has it so the assistant is contextual or smart, in the sense that it pops up when it thinks that you're going to need it, rather than you having to go, let me press this button to get it up now. So say, like in Word, for example, you could be writing and Cortana could pop up going, hey, so I saw you doing this earlier. Are you referencing this thing you were looking at? And you can go, yeah, and it'll pull in all that stuff. Stuff like that. That's not, virtual assistants can't do that yet. And I think that's where Microsoft is trying to take Cortana. In which case, building Cortana out on PC is an advantage. Not having mobile is irrelevant at that point, because it becomes really Cortana. But Cortana just keeps listening to me. But yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, there is definitely this is putting Cortana into your PC and having it deep in there, as well as LinkedIn and Skype, and it's all about information. The only way AI is going to actually get smart is by having and going through tons and tons of data. And that's one reason why they have LinkedIn and all this kind of stuff. And so, yeah, I agree. Until this stuff is woven into the OS level, it can actually act upon and actually do stuff. Listen, like I said, I'm not impressed with telling it to play a song. Or like people are like, oh, Alexa's so good. I'm like, yes, I get it. You're impressed by ordering toilet paper from a speaker. That's congratulations. My bar is a little bit different. And I'm not saying Alexa's not important. I think it's been a huge boon for this industry. And, kudos to Amazon for getting in on there. But I'm not really impressed by these things. They haven't, even the Cortana one, and I have 3 of these speakers, by the way, aren't really things that I'm like, I need them. You know, they're just kind of cool, but we're still years away from this AI stuff really being useful. So I don't know. But if you thought Cortana was dead, sorry, Microsoft is just adding it to more stuff, and I think we'll continue to see this. Yeah, it's better than Apple Siri. That's all I'm saying. Although I still think Siri looks nice. Like, I like the visual stuff, and that's what one of the things I said today. Like, Siri, everybody rags on because it's not very useful, but at the same time, it at least looks kind of cool. And so, actually, this new Microsoft Launcher version of Cortana, I think looks really cool. So I hope they continue with that. I mean, you got to start bringing some of this fluent design stuff to Cortana. I think Cortana on PC, again, I'm just like, I do not like its layout. I don't like the design. And I think they can make it look cooler.
And I think we'll see that then focus on the UI of Cortana when they eventually start moving it out of search and into the App Center or the system tray, which is probably why we've seen Cortana stagnate in regards to its UI. I think the Cortana UI on desktop is ugly as hell, and it has been since it launched. Really, it doesn't even feel native to the OS. It just seems like a sort of, I don't know. It's all very out of place to me.
Once they switched to that card system, which I get there were reasons for that, it's because it's pulling everything from the web. And what's cool about that, it's dynamic. It can scale to any resolution, which is important for Windows Phone at the time because they were coming up with QHD displays and 720s. And so this would scale appropriately. You could also scale onto a PC and still look okay. And you could put it on iOS and Android, and you don't have to really customize everything. When Cortana launched on Windows Phone 8.1 in 2014, it was very native. And that's why it looked awesome. But the problem with that was you couldn't then easily port that to another system. So they have to figure that out. But I agree. I do not like the way Cortana looks at all. I think it's, for something that's supposed to be inspiring and future AI and all that, I'm just looking, I'm like, ugh, like, all right.
Yeah, there's no joy when you use when you use Siri, there's like, oh, that's nice. But Siri's not a good assistant, whereas Cortana kind of is. Cortana's UI is like, ugh.
Yeah.
So they're the very opposite ends of the spectrum. But yeah, I'm
Microsoft, find someone that's find one of these designers on what's that design site that everybody posts stuff
Behance,
to?
I think.
Yeah, Behance. Find someone on there who's done Cortana work, steal their idea. No, pay them, hire them, and make Cortana cool. Make me want to. Again, I always talk about this, that delightful moment, right? And here's a good example. Oh, and this is a funny story. I can tell if it's kind of off the record, but when you first get a new laptop with Windows 10, the out-of-box experience, I love the Cortana thing that helps you out and sets up your PC for you.
Do you really?
I do. I do like it.
Most of Twitter hates it.
Oh, really? See, I like it, but I think some of us find it annoying because I've set up like 20 laptops in the last 3 months. So I'm always hearing, hi, I'm Cortana. It's like, shut up, mute. But I think if you're just a person who has never, you buy a PC once every 3 years, I think it's kind of a cool thing. But that actually came evidently from the rank and file shell team and stuff like that who are working on this stuff. That wasn't like higher ups going, hey, we need to do this as a voice, because it actually helps people who have visual impairments or other disabilities. It helps them set up their PCs too. So there's actually kind of
and it also helps non-techies set up their PC, because I don't know how many times this has happened to you, but to me, whenever a family member or a friend gets a new PC who isn't into tech in any way, they're like, oh, can you come and help me set the PC up? I'm like, no, just press the next button. It's not hard. But now Cortana tells them how to do it, and I don't have to be involved at all, which is nice. Although I worry, since there was quite a bit of backlash in regards to the Cortana stuff in the out-of-box experience, I worry they're going to remove it. Because when they first added it, I thought this was...
I don't think there is. I think, again, I think that's maybe the tech bubble that you're
it's
part
definitely
of.
tech bubble / more enterprisey people complaining about that. I don't think consumers care. But... when they added Cortana into the out-of-box experience, it looked to me like they were finally starting their push towards a contextual Cortana, because Cortana being in the setup means Cortana can be elsewhere in the system as well. Right now, it's sort of a half-finished story where she's in setup and she's very vocal there and she's telling you how to do things, and then she disappears, she's gone. You never see her again, pretty much. But I think what they're slowly going to do is start adding her to more places over time within the OS as well.
Yeah, we see a little bit of this with Edge. Cortana lives there and does little stuff. It's not very intrusive. Actually, I almost overlook it after time, but it's there.
It doesn't. It's only US only as well. It doesn't work anywhere else as well.
Gotcha.
Which is funny.
Yeah, so figures.
I wouldn't be surprised if Office 2019 has some Cortana tie-ins. Which is funny enough.
you would hope
Microsoft
so.
announced this week that Office 2019, the non-Office 365 version, will be Windows 10 only, which plays towards the fact that maybe it has some specific Windows 10 tie-ins that which means it can't work on Windows 8 or Windows 7. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in that regard.
Yeah, they have a lot of opportunity here. They just got to start connecting those dots. Also, Xbox, we're hoping and hearing things that they're going to have maybe some sort of microphone solution. Just give me a remote, media remote with microphone in it. Come on, just give me a couple $100,000. I'll design it. I'll make this happen. Just hire me, Microsoft. Just let me work from home in Massachusetts with my cats. Yeah. So anyway, let's move on to best Android phone. So in a related story, a lot of people always ask, and I think it's a really good question. Again, you and I live in a tech bubble where we work with our friends from Android Central. We're a little bit more tied into this stuff. But if you have a Windows phone, it's 2 years old, and you're thinking about finally making the jump, or you're looking for a reason for someone to convince you to make the jump, right? Because sometimes you don't know how maybe good it is to have a modern smartphone. So I did a roundup this week of 3 of my favorite Android phones that I use, and I actually have a tough time choosing between each one because they all have their pros and cons. And so that was Razer phone, Pixel 2, and that's either the regular one or the XL, depends what size you want. And then, of course, the OnePlus 5 or the 5T if you want the one without the bezels. I could probably add, because I got this in, as a lot of people recommended it, is the Essential phone.
God, it looks so nice.
This is honestly the nicest hardware of all of them. And what's cool about it is I got it on Amazon for $430, which is, considering this is basically the iPhone 10 with Android on it. I mean, it of course doesn't have face recognition, but it has a fingerprint scanner. But yeah, it's pretty amazing hardware. Now, I don't want to get to review that. I'll maybe do a separate thing on this. But the Essential phone was criticized heavily, as was Razer phone when it first came out, for lack of software optimizations and a bad camera. And both companies, in my opinion, have done actually a very good job since its release in updating, fixing these. In fact, the Essential phone literally just got a camera update last night. And I use this thing, I'm like, this is a kind of a okay camera. Like, I don't know. I'm scratching my head like, why do people hate this thing so much? And I get early on it was probably bad, but like now at this point I'm kind of like, I'm pretty much okay with this. And Razer too, their latest camera updates and firmware, they just added Dolby Digital 5.1 for Netflix and Netflix HDR. I don't know. I like these companies because they're underdogs. They're going up against Samsung and LG. And it's sort of like, I like to kind of root for them. But you got to give them a little space, too, to get this stuff right. They can't just catch up to Samsung right away. But all these phones are good because they're almost stock Android experience, which I think if you're coming from Windows Phone is what you want. I have right here, actually, next to me, the LG G6. Beautiful hardware. Really like the way it feels, but the software drives me nuts. I can't use it. It's slow. I don't like their skin. I think it's just garbage.
That was my issue with the Galaxy S8. I love the hardware. Yes. Beautiful phone. Just the software just killed me, man. I could not do it.
and people are like, well, just put on like a different launcher. And it's like, yeah, but that's not really how it works.
No, yeah, it doesn't. The notification center still looks ugly.
Yeah, LG skins and does everything in Android. So yeah, you could change the launcher. Your settings, your notifications, and all the buttons, though, is still whatever they did. And that's the sore spot. Like my LG I got that in the OnePlus, and the OnePlus was like lightning fast compared to it. I'm like, what the hell's the difference? Like they're both running the same processor. Like why? Yeah. And that's why go watch that video though. I go through, talk about each one is cool. The Razer phone is really good if you watch a lot of movies, obviously, or play video games. It's just awesome for that stuff. But it's also big. Yeah, so I have a tough time using it at the gym because I strap my phone to my arm, and the thing is just like a brick on my arm. The Pixel 2 has the best camera of all of them. And, this isn't hyped. The Pixel 2 camera is pretty stunning, both the front-facing and rear camera. It's really, really impressive. And kudos to Google. They're using machine learning to improve the camera. So it's not just the hardware that's so special about it. It's the stuff. And this is the real important stuff behind cameras. It's the algorithms that make it happen. And so, but my problem with the Pixel 2 is it's boring as sin. The hardware is just like, I'm not inspired in using this phone. Like I get bored. It's like, it works. It makes calls. I can do texting on it. It fits in my pocket easily and it takes amazing photos. And that should be enough. At the same time, I'm kind of like, I look at my Razer phone. I'm like, this thing is fun to use. I don't know. OnePlus is probably the best all around for its price and feature set, I think. And I've had a few people that switch from Windows Phone to a OnePlus and been very happy. Almost like, wow, I didn't think it would be this easy and nice to switch to Android. Now, OnePlus, they've had the issue with credit cards leaking, and that's a thing. They've also been accused of having backdoors and close ties to the Chinese government. I don't want to weigh in on that. Some people care, some people don't. I think in a world where people post everything on Facebook and share everything and put Amazon cameras in their bedrooms, I think it's a moot point. But I get if it's important to you, but you can make that decision. And the Essential phone, now that's an American one, so I don't know. I really like
the Essential phone does ship to the UK if you order from Amazon US, and I don't think there's much of an import fee. It's pretty cheap. I was looking at it before. I could get it into the country for like 360 quid, which is pretty good for what you get in that. It's an 835, right? Snapdragon 835, premium build, essentially infinity screen like on the iPhone X, including the notch thing. That's a nice phone. The only issue the reason I didn't get that originally is because I was reading reviews and stuff on it. The camera was bad, although I didn't really care about the camera. The other two issues I read about was the touch digitizer is somewhat inaccurate and jittery when you're scrolling, which is one thing that will just kill me because I noticed like things like frame drops and stuff. And the other thing is, what was it? Signal, Wi-Fi signal and cellular signal is very weak on that phone apparently.
Yeah, I haven't been able to verify the cell signal stuff. I'll try to do that. The touch thing, it's kind of there. It's not like... It's not enough for me to not use this phone, but it feels like sometimes I have to press. It's not as sensitive as some other phones. So I feel like sometimes I have to press harder to get a response. But yeah, it's kind of hard to explain. But I feel like that's also part of software tweaking. Now, it's on Android 7.1.1, which is an old version. They were going to go to 8.0, and there was a beta test for that. And apparently they ran into issues with that 8.0, so they're going to 8.1, which will be out in a couple weeks. And I imagine that will solve a lot of problems and fix a lot of stuff. But they've been doing some pretty good updates lately, and I'm actually pretty happy with it. Like I have my main SIM in it right now. I'm using it as my main phone. Razer's on my second SIM. But yeah, it's I don't know. I'm surprised you didn't get this phone actually.
I was very close. I did have it. What I did a couple of months ago, I did buy it and then cancelled the order because I was so torn about the touch digitizer thing. I was like, I don't know. And also, my office that I'm in currently is on the ground floor and it's also soundproof. So a lot of phones already get very low signal in here. So that phone probably wouldn't get any. Also, I just want to add one more recommendation. One phone that I used, it surprised me, and I actually enjoyed, was the Nokia 8. Now, I know a few people are like, oh, Nokia, who cares these days?
A lot of people still.
The Nokia 8, it depends on the color you get. If you get the Nokia 8 in this color, which is the mirror finish blue version, I think there's a mirror finish copper version as well. If you get the one in the mirror finish with the 6 gigs of RAM, I think it is, it's a great phone. It's stock Android, more stock than Oxygen OS on the OnePlus 5T. This is literally stock Android. There's nothing added on here, I don't think. Maybe a lot of tiny customization things here and there, but it's basically a stock experience, just like on the OnePlus. And it's nice hardware. It's a normal 16:9 screen, which isn't my fave in 2018, but it's more than fine for most people. Capacitive buttons for front-facing fingerprint reader, which was slow, but in the latest beta, they made it faster, which is always a nice addition. The cameras, it's dual screen, one's monochrome. It's dual lensed, one's monochrome, one isn't. The camera on here is not great. If you're somebody who is very tied to their camera, I wouldn't get this phone for the camera.
Oh, everything else, so far you've fallen.
Yeah, everything else is really nice. Like even like the clickiness of the buttons, they're so good. They just sound great and they feel good. Yeah. It's an overall nice phone.
Yeah, I had a lot of people tell me I should try the Nokia. So I was like, yeah, but that's like an average phone. I wanted flagship.
And what counts as a flagship, though?
Well, at least Snapdragon 835, 4 gigs of RAM.
Yeah, this has an 835 and 4 gigs.
A high-res screen.
And a high-res screen. It's not OLED. That's the other thing I don't like about this phone. It's not OLED. It's an LCD.
I don't care about the OLED thing too much. I know some people are really partisan again on that, but oh well. So yeah, that's the best Android phones. Like I said, I'll probably do a video when I get back from vacation on how to Microsoftify your Android phone and how I use it. If you're looking to transition over to a competing phone, although who knows, you may not have long to wait if you're a fan of Microsoft Mobile. 2018 could be a fun year. But we'll have to wait and see for that.
If you've been real quick on that subject, if you're still using a Windows phone and you've been holding out for this and jumping the thing, I wouldn't go and get an Android phone now. It is this year. It's sooner rather than later. So if you can hold out for 9 more months or maybe a bit less than that, then you should totally do that.
Wow, look at that, people. That's the big harbinger for you. So yeah, I think.
I mean, you've waited this long, right? I mean, there's no point jumping ship now. If you're using Windows Phone today and you're okay with it, then there's no point.
But will it have Snapchat?
No, it won't have Snapchat, sadly.
Oh well. Let's talk about Xbox Joule. You got a prototype, which was less exciting than we all. I mean, I don't know. I find this so funny. It's sort of like we see diagrams and patents and leak stuff. It's like, oh my God, that's what they were working on. And then you get it, and it's like, okay.
Yeah.
It's less exciting because it doesn't have a band with it either, so you couldn't even actually wear it.
And even if it did, I would not wear this on a daily basis. It's big and heavy. Anyway, yeah, that's the sad reality of getting prototypes sometimes. Sometimes the prototypes are so early, they don't do anything. And in this case, the Joule, which... For those who don't know, the Joule is the code name for the original Microsoft wearable that was tied to Xbox, weirdly. So this is something that The Verge wrote about back in 2013, maybe 2012, I can't remember. They were working on this thing. It was supposed to be like a heart rate monitor that tied in with Microsoft's Kinect Play Fit service, which was an Xbox 360 thing where you could compare it with friends the sort of calories you lost when playing Kinect-based games. And that service did launch, admittedly without the wearable. It did still tie in with Kinect, and it could still sort of track your calories lost. I don't know how that works. I guess it's sort of estimated based on how big you were and how much you were moving and stuff. I don't know how it worked. But what the Joule was going to do was add an additional layer of data to that, in the sense that with the wearable, you could track things like heart rate, distance traveled, and a whole bunch of other things. And I think they were building this out to be a sort of like the Microsoft Band was when it initially launched, which is funny because the Microsoft Band did spawn out of this project. The people working on this did move over to the Band team and build the Band, and then the Band 2. So some of the things they were planning with this original Joule included things like workouts, which turned into guided workouts on the Microsoft Band eventually. There was another thing called Free Play, which you could just use that, and it had GPS in it, so it could track where you were going and stuff. And I think you could use that outside of games, so you could still keep fit and stuff, and still see your data, regardless of whether you were playing a Kinect-based game or not. And they were also planning things like real life achievements, which I did mention this on the last podcast. 10,000 steps in a day, you could have got an achievement for that and stuff, which would have been really cool.
Why didn't the band have achievements?
I know, it should have, right? That seems like a really odd thing to miss out on, but...
Microsoft needs to seriously put Chivos in everything. I want it in Office.
Yeah.
You spelled that word correctly after I fixed it. This is how Cortana and Chivos will fix things. You'd be like, I always misspell mischievous. And like the 10th time you finally get it right, and Cortana can pop in like, you finally got it right. Here's an achievement.
Yeah.
That'd be so good. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, I'm just showing the video podcast, the UI and stuff. So it's very gesture-based. So there's only one button, and that acts as a power button. Everything else is done with, swiping places. So to end a task, right now I'm in the Free Play app. To end it, you swipe down from the top and tap on end, and then there's also like a clock face if you swipe down when on like the launcher screen, and you get like the time and stuff. In this prototype, since it is alpha stage, there's only two apps: the guided workout, the workouts app, and Free Play. Workouts
and Snapchat, weirdly.
Workouts doesn't work because it says, what does it say? I'll tell you what it says. It says, please subscribe to. It's scrolling really slowly. It says, please subscribe to to workout. So you have to subscribe to this, I guess. I don't know why. And then there's a settings app which has two settings: about and brightness. And in about, it gives you sort of your information, which isn't my information. That's just put in there, and the version of the software it's running, which was an alpha build. But yeah, overall, it looks sort of like a mini Windows phone. If you look at the top, there's like a status bar with the time and stuff, and then you've got like your tiles and whatnot. If they had built this out, maybe it would have been interesting. But at the current stage this is, I would not have bought it.
Yeah, and we should be fair to the Microsoft team here. This was meant for, they do this all the time. These aren't finished products. They're meant to be like, hey, here's the thing, how it kind of would look like. But this is way before the finalized version, you know, in both physical design and software would go into production. And it probably wouldn't look like that anyway, but they need something to actually test stuff on, so they quickly whip these things up. A lot of times they use off-the-shelf parts, things that already exist on the market, because they're not going to go to China and be like, manufacture 3 of these. It's like, all right, that's $100,000. It's like, you know, if you're working on a small budget, so a lot of times they just make these internally. That even Courier apparently worked like that, where they would take off-the-shelf parts, and some companies were putting together things, but there was never apparently an actual Courier that did all the things it was supposed to do in one device. It was always like, well, here's part of the screen does this, and here's this piece that this company made. They never put it together. Now, what's cool about this stuff too, I think, is Microsoft probably has tons of these projects all the time happening on the campus, little groups that get together and like, let's try this thing out, and they do it internally. And I think how that works then is like, all right, this is kind of a cool idea. They kind of get a working prototype from their program manager, gave them the permission. Then they go to their higher bosses and be like, here's this thing we have a working prototype, and this is how we think we could do it. Here's our projections. And they do that presentation just like you see in movies, and then the boss goes, you know, like, all right, take it to the next stage. And that's how these things happen, though. And what I think you have is like a very early stage when they're looking at this like Xbox and fitness and all this, and I guess eventually turned into band. That's what we heard. But who knows what team worked on what and how much of that actually affected. It is weird how, if that was true, and Band kind of came out, like how Band had like zero connection to Xbox. Like that's why I find it kind of weird. It was sort of, it doesn't feel like an evolution. It feels like it was a different project.
One of the reasons why I think that happened was because aiming a product at gamers, fitness products at gamers, is an odd thing to do, considering most gamers aren't all that into fitness. Now I know there are some people are, and I'm not, you know, I'm not saying that they aren't, but one of the things that this thing was tied into was the Kinect. It was a sort of Kinect-orientated accessory, and at the time, gamers were not taking well to Kinect. Gamers didn't like it; they didn't want it. They didn't want Kinect, and it was like a sort of funny thing that some casual people use who definitely weren't fitness users. So the target audience for this thing is probably one of the reasons why it's killed more than anything, and which is probably why when they did start working on the Band, there was less of an Xbox tie-in.
Am I hearing you correctly, I should say, in that you're saying Microsoft should have marketed Cheetos to its Xbox fans instead of a fitness wearable? I find that offensive and stereotypical, and I would like you to retract that implication.
It's true, though.
Fair enough. No, I actually used Xbox and the Kinect Fitness stuff to start to get back into shape a few years ago. It was really good. I was super impressed with that technology. Like, it could see you doing push-ups and all the hiker moves and all this kind of stuff and burpees. Like, and I had a tiny living room at the time and like not much space, but it worked. And it is a shame. Fitness is hard, and it's hard to, you know, justify the cost. And you said that, you know, a lot of game developers both didn't embrace it and gamers didn't really embrace it. And it was part of the whole Nintendo Wii thing at the time. It's one of those ideas that on paper and when you see in action seems like a no-brainer. When Project Natal was first demonstrated, people were like, oh my God, this is the future, make it happen. And then Microsoft, all right, here it is. If you're like, it was I think part of it was because we never had that little boy who lived on your screen that you can interact with.
Yeah, do you remember that demo? For those who don't know what we're talking about, there was when they unveiled Natal, there was like this demo they had where it's like a sort of interactive game, and there was like elements where like this character would walk up to the screen and talk to you, and you could talk back to the character, and it'd be like, hey, can you draw this thing for me? And you could scan it in with a Kinect, and then the person in the game would have that in the game. That never happened.
Nope.
Never happened at all.
It could have, but we didn't have a Tamagotchi human. That'd be funny. You had to get up every day and you feed this little boy that lives in your TV, and like, you
Especially
feed him for a week. You come back, he's all emaciated.
Especially in the age where the Xbox can turn on its own. It's like, hey, I just want you to do something for me quick, and you're like, go away, Xbox, turn it off.
Yours would have been like, was it Tiny Tim? It would have been like, feed me, sir. Can I have some food?
Yeah.
Sorry, that's my British accent for the
Thanks.
day. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Oh well. Yeah, technology it's fun stuff. Hopefully Microsoft is still playing with wearables. Like I said, they still, here's my free idea. I still want a wearable AI Cortana thing at some point. So Panos, I saw
get on that.
I saw him learn to braid his daughter's hair, which was adorable. But when he gets time, he can make an AI wearable device that has Cortana on it. I'd be much appreciated.
Yeah, I'll spend that on my desk next week. Thank you.
Yes, seriously. Okay, I think that wraps up. We're coming up on an hour. We'll do some Q&A with the audience next. If you're listening to this recorded, of course, you're not going to be hearing this. This is where we leave you, unfortunately. I'm sorry, but you can join us anytime at Fridays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time on mixer.com/Windows Central, one word, where we do this live. You can watch us, talk to us, and all that cool stuff. And of course, if you're listening to us, you can also go to that same address, mixer.com Windows Central, and rewatch the podcast right after it happens. So in case you're at work, you can just click and watch it, which is kind of cool. I'll be gone next week, but we'll have a guest sitting in. Well, one of our writers sit in.
Yeah, Sean Michael, who is our apps editor, will be coming on to talk the week.
Steve Ballmer is co-hosting. No, hey, Zach! I just imagine him yelling all the time. Maybe someday we'll have that happen. But yes, join us next week. I'll be back in 2 weeks, all tanned and refreshed, hopefully. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. You can follow me on Twitter, Daniel_Rubino, RUB as in boy, INO. Follow Zach at ZACBOWDEN, and we appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Talk to you later.